Tibetan areas, China has implemented educational reforms, replacing Tibetan with Chinese as the main language. Boarding schools are now used for Tibetan children as young as 4, aiming to prepare them for adult life in Mandarin Chinese. Dr. Jiao Lo believes China's education reforms target the youngest Tibetans to undermine their identity and culture. Overseas human rights groups have raised concerns about China's actions in Tibet, focusing on Uyghurs and Hong Kong. Chinese officials have closed Tibetan village schools and expanded the use of boarding schools, impacting 80% of Tibetan children.
Chinese embassy in London defends the necessity of boarding schools due to the scattered population. Opponents argue that boarding schools cause psychological trauma by separating children from their families. A Tibetan teenager shares her challenging experience of missing her family while at a boarding school. The teenager recalls how many children cried and experienced emotional distress at the boarding school. Some younger children would wake up crying in the middle of the night and run to the school gate for comfort. The impact of separation from families on children at boarding schools is a significant concern raised by critics. The emotional toll of being away from loved ones is a common experience shared by children in boarding schools. Critics emphasize the importance of considering the well-being of children in the debate over boarding school policies. The story of the Tibetan teenager highlights the personal struggles faced by children in boarding schools. The debate on boarding schools revolves around balancing educational access with the emotional needs of children. To China, concerns were raised about educational reforms in Tibet aiming to homogenize ethnic minorities. Mandarin was promoted as the key to assimilating minorities, sparking tensions as seen in a university dispute. Dr. Jiao Lo's refusal to prioritize Chinese articles led to conflict, highlighting the language's supremacy. Facing pressure, Dr. Jiao Lo fled to Canada, where he continues to advocate against Tibet's educational changes. China counters criticism with a propaganda campaign, dismissing dissenting voices like Prof. Xanthaki and Dr. Jiao Lo. Accused of spreading fake news, Prof. Xanthaki faces China's attempts to undermine her credibility. Dr. Jiao Lo's authority is questioned in Chinese media, reflecting Beijing's efforts to discredit his activism. Despite challenges, Dr. Jiao Lo remains resolute in shedding light on the plight of Tibetan language and culture. Concerns grow for the younger generation in Tibet, facing a cultural identity crisis and uncertain future. Tibetan youth risk alienation, struggling to find belonging in either Chinese or Tibetan societies.